Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Cipriano Roybal, and I just wanted to, when the civil rights attorney was talking, what it reminded me of, when I was up at the labs at Los Alamos, I remember there was an incident here in Albuquerque, I believe it was around the 80s, maybe 90s. There was a civil rights issue, and one of the things that if I recall right, and I'd like for you to please check, they had actually at that time, if I remember right, required the Miranda warning to be given. And it's something I have not heard in a while, but when you were talking about civil rights and the balance, it so reminded me about the Miranda warning and how that actually was really a good balance when you actually look at the law in that particular case. So I really would like for you to consider that, please.
Okay, real quick, just to answer, one thing you'll notice is, officers have Miranda or Fifth Amendment rights as well, and a lot of, several paragraphs in the agreement go into protecting those rights as well, because the agreement goes into detail about how internal and administrative investigations should be conducted by the police department, and there's case law and there are other requirements to make sure that that all rights are being protected as we investigate incidents and we hold people accountable. So it is an issue that we pay close attention to in the agreement, and I appreciate you raising it.
Let's go to this gentleman right here, Ed.
So, I don't know your name, but Ed, are you suggesting that when a CPC has a recommendation that they want the chief to see, that we not only use the procedure to get that recommendation to the chief that's specified in the DOJ agreement, but that we also simultaneously submit that same recommendation to the police oversight board? Is that the right
Yes.
name? Yes.
Yes.
My understanding is that in the DOJ agreement, we're supposed to get a response in what, 30 days? Yes. Or 90 days? 90. Yeah, so, that's not working. I was talking to a member of my community, Stronghurst neighborhood, near 2nd and Campbell area. She was asking me, so you guys have in the CPC kind of a direct line to the chief? I said, well, not so far as I can see, although that's the idea, And of course, that's an honest answer as far as my experience as a board member so far at North Valley. That discourages, people. And I have no idea as a board member where this stuff is getting hung up. Not a clue. Maybe Mr. Rickman will be able to throw some light on this when he starts attending our meetings. But even in this meeting right here, I see that somebody is filming it. He also films our North Valley meetings. I have no problem with that. I don't know what these videos where they go, but who in the city knows that this meeting is happening, other than the people in this room? I don't get why the city is not making a massive effort to spending money, getting people to know that the CPCs exist, that these meetings exist, that the police oversight board exists. Nobody knows. It's probably partly the media's fault, but the city's got to spend money. The city's supposed to give us resources as CPCs to function. We've got no resources. Zero.
Maybe you could put together a PSA and then send it to the chief
and it'll sit there.
And
Sorry.
Well, we have to keep working the process. Otherwise, we give up, and where are we? We're back where we were before. So if you don't want to continue to work the process,
I want to keep working the process.
I understand the frustration, but we have to keep working the process. So I'm going to work my way around. Okay.
My name is Alan Wagman. I was on the Police Oversight Task Force. I'm a public defender. I do pre-indictment work, so I see a lot more video of initial APD encounters with people than most people do. I see hundreds of them a year. And what's very clear is that it is very frequent that APD officers, when they write up their reports and when they testify about what happens when they encounter people, lie. What is on the video is nothing like what the officer writes up or what the officer testifies to. The reason I mention this is because I look at the panel and I look around this room, and frankly, I don't see the ethnic and economic composition of Albuquerque here. Because the people that the police lie about are not here. They're not here, I'm guessing, because they're afraid to be here. And with good reason, because they know that if anything happens, the police are going, between them and the police will lie about it. I see it all the time. And I have no doubt that there is a great deal of dog whistling in the Albuquerque Police Department that says it's okay to lie. And the reason I have no doubt is because in the last city APD self-report for the period December to February, Bill Slauson said in his conclusion, APD continues to make significant gains toward the goals of the settlement agreement. That's the way APD reports itself. And I do not see DOJ, I don't really even see the monitor calling the city to task for blatantly lying about what it's doing. If the leadership of the department won't tell the truth and nobody will call them on it, how could we expect to have effective councils in the neighborhoods? Because everybody is going to be afraid to stand up because they know the police are going to continue to lie because the top and all the way down says it's okay to lie. And I'd like to know what can be done within the context of the lawsuit and what the CPCs can do about that.
Right here, I'm gonna,
Hold on.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought,
I'm gonna work my way.
oh, I apologize.
And I can try to start to try and address that, because I think where we are under this agreement is in a new place, right? We have the CPOA and the POB that's reconstituted, right? There was a time there that you were, Mr. Wagman, on the task force to try and bring that back. Many cities would sort of envy that model, right? To have an agency or an entity outside of the police department investigating civilian complaints with investigators, with power to compel and get documents. Not every city has that, and you do have that. And so it's something really powerful here in the city that exists. What we did was try and have it live to its full potential in addressing it through the agreement. You also have the police department investigating every single use of force, right, from the very beginning. They have cameras. Not every jurisdiction, again, has cameras. So it's another layer of protection. While these reforms are being put in place, we have a federal judge and an independent monitor who has access to documents, videos, a lot of information to be able to put together a picture and present it in these 4-month reports that are being made available to the public. So I think what we try to do is build in a lot of different layers and a lot of different avenues, including the CPCs, so that people can come forward, bring those issues to light, and fix a problem if it exists, right? When we identify a problem, let's fix it. And it's, it's why the CPOA is here, POB, CPCs, Dr. Ginger. The agreement requires that the police department complete its self-assessment, right? It's got to be able to say, this is where we think we are in implementing the agreement. Dr. Ginger looks at that, but then he has access to a lot of the source materials to formulate his own opinion. The same way that you all would have to make up your own mind, right, as CPCs, about whether your recommendations are being met, and whether the city's being responsive. So I think we are in a new place, and I think we just need to make sure that they're all working, right? And a forum like this is a way to talk about it and make sure that we're moving forward.
I would also like to add that when you find those instances, bring them to our attention so that our agency can investigate those acts of untruthfulness and have the independent board make a finding on that so that the proper actions can be taken against that officer. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Can I mention really quickly that the point that the gentleman made is a very important one. And if we are going to have genuine reform of this department, the disconnect in what APD is saying it's doing and what it's actually doing has to be addressed, and it hasn't up to this point. The APD4 just put out an analysis of the monitor's second report that that compares APD's self-report with the monitor's report. Those two things don't match up. They eventually will have to match up if we're going to move forward with this process.
That analysis is available at apdforward.org. Sorry.
If I could just add something real quickly too, is one of the things that's very important about this is everybody knows what APD and the city of Albuquerque has to do because we have the settlement agreement. Officers know, members of the administration at the city do, DOJ, but anyone out in the community can pull that down, look and see how are they held accountable. On top of that, and this is what I go back to, is this is a court enforceable agreement. And that's a very big deal. Because ultimately, if something happens or doesn't happen, the court can look at this and say, okay, well, then what other remedies do I need to take?
Yes, sir.
I'm Jack Taylor. I'm involved with APD Forward. As I keep going to these meetings, a common thread is people saying, I sent this to the city, I sent this to the city, but we never get a response. And my experience is the only one from the city who's ever here is Selena. And the mayoral administration seems to be this kind of black hole out there where things go and we never hear anything back. And I think that's a real barrier in the reform process.
That's a wise answer. I'm going to go to some people that haven't had a chance to talk. Okay. Sorry.
Hello everyone, my name is Teresa Gonzalez, and I'm disappointed that we didn't get to hear the recommendations for the two missing CPC members. But as a representative of the community and a lifelong multi-generational resident and heir here to two historical land grants in this community, I wanted to offer up some ideas on how we can better authentically engage community members. I've done organizing work for over 15 years, specifically with neighborhood associations and law enforcement, to build those relationships and to ensure that we have a culture that's conducive to that, because policies mean nothing, right, if they're not executed, and there's no accountability. There's a few things, just jotted these notes down. Definitely training for APD, anti-oppression, cultural humility, and understanding the history of policing altogether in this nation is based on slavery, and so we have to understand the root. We have to do a root analysis and deconstruct that, because racism, you can't separate racism from policing, period, because it is rooted in American history. Second, community organizing and civic engagement training for the CPC members. It appears as though there wasn't efficient support or training to ensure that you guys were on the ground, really tapping into the most vulnerable populations, those who are most impacted, such as those who are considered vagrant and homeless, of course, are young people, women, those who are illiterate, and any other vulnerable populations that they are now further disenfranchised. It has happened with neighborhood associations, even looking at, right, again, the intergenerational aspect of ensuring that not just adults are speaking, but young people have a seat at the table. And also not being further marginalized even by so-called community leaders, because we often target sort of like pastors or different leaders within the community, not in really knowing for sure if they really truly represent and are not just symbolic representation. Accessible and relevant criminal justice data that is disaggregated by race, ethnicity, geography, socioeconomic status, and crime. And with that, we can do a trend analysis. As we know, nonviolent versus violent crimes is a tremendous disparity in terms of mass incarceration nationwide and within our own community. No one has lifted up the aspect that even though we have a very low African-American youth population and a very low African-American adult population here in the state, that they are still one of the most groups that continue to be represented in the incarceration system, adjudicated youth and adults, as well as Native Americans. And so we need to make sure that I don't see too many represented in the community that I serve. We also need to look at guidelines of how race and ethnicity is actually identified and documented, because to me it's always been subjectively by police. I've never been arrested and asked what my race or ethnicity was. It was based on what the police officer thought I was, and so we have skewed data if we're not even allowing people to self-identify who they are. Authentic community engagement and efforts to ensure community members are involved, which was mentioned several times, but it needs to happen. This is by the city has a responsibility, APD has a responsibility, as well as the community coalitions, such as the CPC and APD4, to ensuring this information is out. I didn't even hear about this meeting, and I'm also a member of APD Forward, an individual member. Getting updates, I didn't get no updates on this for the last hearing. I had to find out through the people, and I'm pretty well informed, so not enough folks, and especially having access to computers and technology, that's simply not enough. Ensuring any new funding, and this is really, really important, and please, ensuring any new funding, infrastructure, and especially monetary resources given to the city by the federal government, the state government, the city government, or any municipality is not given to themselves, okay? All this money is being funneled down to address violence in our community, and it's not going to the community. How do we have, all of the, behavioral health cuts like the way we have, and prevention cuts the way we have, and expect to not have violence in our communities? It's not okay. So we need to give to culturally appropriate and integrative community-based agencies that are on the ground doing the work, that know how to heal and support one another. All this money, people are just making a whole lot of money off of our poverty, off of our incarceration rates, and especially this violence. A lot of people are rich right now, or are becoming rich off of these conversations, and by no one showing up from the community that's going to hold them accountable. So we need to make sure that community members themselves are sitting at these decision-making tables when these monies are coming in from the federal government or through the county or through the city. So there's some accountability on where that funding is being distributed. And not a bunch of new initiatives. We have a lot of really great work that's already been done that is underfunded right now. We don't need the county to build more transitional programs. We need our community to be able to support one another and create residential programs for our homeless population, because vagrancy is a crime, and that's ridiculous.
So hi. To address the recommendation process, we have formalized the recommendation process. If you guys all think that it would be best to put recommendations through the CPOA, that's something that we would totally be open to and think we would welcome. I've heard and heard that you don't feel that the recommendations are making it directly to chief. So here's right now the way the recommendation process will go, and you can hold me personally accountable to it. So I'll pass this out for anybody that wants it. It's here. And then if you think that, I don't know, Mr. Harness, if you guys are willing to take on that work, but I don't think the department will have any problems with the CPC's recommendations going directly to that agency. I just don't want to create more work for you guys either.
Well, no, I think that it's a valuable tool to get the feedback and the voice from the community on many different levels. And so certainly we don't mind if it's duplicitous at all that you make a recommendation directly to the chief, and then it comes over to the POB, and maybe the POB makes the same recommendation. It just reinforces it.
Sure. Will you guys all send me your recommendations so that I can have them first thing tomorrow, and we can double check, triple check that this is following that process? So all current recommendations that have been passed by the councils, send them to me right away, so that way we can start following this process that was approved by the councils. I also think it's detrimentally important that these CPCs are independent. I am here to sit, to listen to you guys utilize me, utilize resources, make sure I hear what needs to be done and what you guys want, because that's the way the councils go. APD is simply there to be that helping hand and make sure that you don't like this, you think I'm doing a bad job, I have no problems hearing that. That's why I'm here, and I want to learn and do better, and I know that Chief completely supports that too. So I love hearing these types of things. I love getting this feedback, and we want to work and move forward. I think one of the things that was pertinent that came up now is policy. And now that we have some of the new, I brought the use of force policies, new and old, to I believe every CPC meeting and handed out copies so that we can have them and you guys all could look at them. The community as a whole too. Anybody wants the new and old policies, I'll print you a copy, I'll get it right to you. I'll hand deliver it, I'll drive to you to give it to you. We can figure out a good way to make that happen. But these policies will be reviewed every 6 months. So don't just take the policy that I handed out at the last meeting and think, okay, well, we got it, what do we do with it? Look at it, because it will be reviewed every 6 months, especially the ones that are pertinent to the settlement agreement. Write down that feedback, even if it's only to give it to a chair who sends it to Ed's group, who sends it to me, whatever that communication you'd like it to be, I will take it in spades and we'll send it right to the right people. It has to work that way. So don't think that, I don't know, if there is a policy that you're concerned about, whether that's tasers or constitutional policing, community policing, bring that up and make sure that we're discussing it, because I guess I would be open from justice perspective to see what best ways that's done. I've never witnessed it, and I think that this is something relatively new within the city. So let's figure out best practices if you have recommendations on how we can hear policies. Is it that we give a policy to the CPC that day and you guys look it over and pull it apart, or how that might be formed? And as far as communication, from APD perspective, we put it out on our social media sites, we put it out on the websites. I printed flyers. The Northwest Council is creating a logo for all the CPCs so that it looks independent and is independent via the department. So those flyers I'll print out more for you guys, and you can put them up in every single spot that you want, wherever you'd like them to be. I'd be open to any other types of, we've been trying to hit media, we've done I Am New Mexico, there's been spots that I toss all the time to the reporters, but any communication that you guys want to have, start your own Facebook pages, start your own flyers, do whatever you'd like. We'll provide the resources to help with that. So I want there to be that support and you feel supported. I'm here to hear and listen and be able to help with it. Okay? You want my cell phone number? I'll give it out right now. It's 505-263-9989. 263-9989.